Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. You must be the new exchange student. Lucifina was telling me about you. So, what's your name and pronouns? Nice. I'm Satana, and I go by she, her pronouns. Well, it's nice to meet you too. Huh? What am I doing? I'm just reading a book. I love reading. You know, it depends on what kind of book you read. If it's a fiction book of some sort, it's like it's taking you to a world that you never would have thought possible. And if it's nonfiction, you'll learn something new. So, it's a win-win. Currently, I am reading a historical fiction novel. I don't typically read that many historical fiction novels, so I decided to pick one up recently, since I don't read enough of them. I love historical fiction novels in their own way. They're just, don't get me wrong, they're pretty good books. They're nicely put together and they're very well written. It's just, history was never something that really interested me that much. But I do like them in their own way. They do tell a story while sticking mostly true to real-life events from the past. You can learn a lot about history through a fictional character that has gone through something that real people have. There are a lot of them that make me really sad. Like ones based on hate crimes or wars, but there's a lot of things that aren't too aggressive. I'm sure you've heard of a very famous book, Diary of Anne Frank. Well, I read a book a few years back where a fictional character knew Anne Frank, but there are no records of this person ever existing or being alive in history, ever. So they just completely made her up for the story. Kind of as a way for us to see what it was like to be friends with Anne Frank back then. Or something like that. Books really are amazing. Well, are you a reader? Oh, well, I have a lot of recommendations. I have books that I would recommend to people who read sometimes. I have books that for people who read whenever they have the chance, but they don't have much time, so they're looking for a short read. I have books that I can recommend to people who are straight up obsessed with books. They can't get enough. Every waking minute of every day is spent reading a book for them. Well, when they're not tending to school or work or taking care of a family member or whatever other responsibilities they have in their day-to-day lives. But I also have books that I would recommend to somebody who has not even seen the inside of a book in like 8 years. I mean, people say, I haven't seen a book in years. But you really have, obviously. You may not have opened one up, but you've definitely seen a book in that time. So that's why I say haven't seen the inside of a book, because to see the inside, you typically have to consider at least reading it. I mean, even if you don't end up actually reading it, you still considered it. Maybe you read a page or two and decided, this really isn't the book for me, or maybe you looked and the text was really small, and you don't have good vision so you can't read it, or maybe you noticed that the text was really small and you can't read it because you don't have the time, or your reading ability isn't that great for your age, or you just don't think you'd be able to read that many words without getting distracted. I mean, some people just don't like to read, and that's fine, but I don't like the people who say, oh, I don't like to read, but they never even really tried. You can't really say that you don't like something if you haven't even tried it. That's like going up to somebody and being like, hi, what's your name? And then they look back at you and they're like, I don't want to talk to you. You're a terrible person. And you've only seen this person in class before. You don't know a thing about this person. You haven't heard any rumors that they're bad. You haven't heard any rumors that they're a jerk. You haven't heard anything. You just came up with the assumption on your own, and you say that they're a jerk and that you don't want to talk to them. See how stupid that sounds? I mean, you can't call someone a jerk without knowing them. Well, either way, I have a book that I think that you will really like, based on what Lucifina has told me about you, and based on what you told me about how often you read. I think I have the perfect book for you. I hope you enjoy it, or at least give it a try. Seriously, it annoys me. I used to be in a book club a few years back, and with all these other demons, and most of them fell into the read all the time or read as often as their schedule allows them category. And yet I recommended a book, and one of the girls there was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll totally read this book. Thank you so much for recommending it to me, Saitana. And I'm like, my name isn't Saitana. I just, Of course my name's Saitana. You don't get it? Well, alright. I only said my name wasn't Saitana because of her tone of voice. I admittedly judge people before getting to know them, but even if I have that judgment in my head, I still at least try to get to know them. Does that make sense? Alright, good. So, I tried getting to know this girl on several occasions, but she kept pushing me away and turning me down. And then I overheard her talking behind my back, okay? So, she completely got my name wrong. And the person she was gossiping to, she just looked so confused, like, who are you talking about? I've never heard anybody with that name. And then she described me, and it was me exactly. I don't know how she knew my shirt size, but she's really creepy. But, I know, shirt size and everything. I know. Total creeper. But anyways, that doesn't really matter now. So I kept, every time she would say my name, whether it was wrong or right, I kept saying, that's not my name, that's not my name. And then when I gave her the book, she just got really angry. I was like, my name's not Saitana, but okay. And then she just glared at me. She just glared at me, and she stormed off with the book in her hand, alright? Then, the next week when we came back, she gave me the book, and she was like, this book's terrible, I don't want to read it anymore, you have terrible taste. And I was just like, alright, well, what didn't you like about it? I'll try and give you a different recommendation. I don't really like this girl that much, but I'm still gonna try and be civil with her. I mean, I may be the avatar of wrath, but I don't really like giving in to my anger that much. And she just said, you picked it out. It's terrible. I know. What a jerk. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that that comment didn't upset me, because it did. It upset me a whole lot. And for, like, 27, I think, years after that, I didn't give a single recommendation to another being. Oh, you want to know what changed? Well, Lucifina. Hate her guts, but she came up to me and she was like, hey, I read all the books in my personal library, and my favorite genre tends to be fantasy. Would you happen to have any recommendations for me? Of course, I know that Lucifina doesn't really enjoy fantasy that much, but still, I was reluctant, but I did eventually end up giving her a book of mine to borrow. I mean, I hate her, but... Alright, don't tell her, okay? I hate her and all that, but she helped me get through my little 27-year depressive funk. And after that, I started being confident enough in myself to start recommending books again. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have given you this whole long lecture. Well, anyways, here's the book that I recommend for you. Could you maybe do me a favor and at least try to read it? Even if you don't like it, don't be afraid to tell me, because I have several other options. Just, please, promise me you'll at least give it a try?